It's time for more casual sports talk from a casual sports fan. Open up that fridge. It's time for some very cold lasagna with their host, me, DylanLasagna. Welcome everyone to another brand new episode of Very Cold Lasagna, the podcast hosting a safe and open forum for casual, cold, and even the dumbest takes on WWE, All Elite Wrestling, and the NFL, and the world of wrestling and sports in general. And it's a brand new week. That means it's another new set of stupid takes from a casual fan like me. And hopefully I get to hear some of your grand takes from you casual fans too. Because, again, this is a safe space for casual sports fans like you and me. But anyway, this week we got another big show for you all. This past weekend, at the time of this recording, it was Super Wild Card weekend in the NFL. We got a lot of big games. Honestly, most of them were a lot of good ones, but we'll get into that. A lot of it consisted of revenge games, big upsets, and yes, we even had slime and NVP honors. We had to hand out an award for being a not so valuable player. But anyway, we're gonna get into Super Wildcard Weekend. Plus, we're also gonna get into the divisional matchup, the next round of the NFL playoffs, in this portion of the show, and a couple of my personal offseason needs for the teams that didn't make it to the next round. So we're gonna get into all of that on this episode of Very Cold Lasagna, and wherever you're watching this, whether it's on YouTube, please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. It means the world to me, and click on the notification bell because, as it can be said a million times, I say on my main other main YouTube channel or on this channel, how many channels I make, YouTube doesn't always send out notifications for when videos go out. So tap that notification bell, or always check the channel often for whenever I upload a new episode of the podcast. Or if you're listening to this on an audio platform, make sure you go follow me on Anchor or Spotify. It means the world to me as well. Wherever you listen to this podcast or whether you watch it, your support means the world to me. With that being said, let's get into some non-football news first, because time on occasion I like to talk about things other than football, because eventually down the line I want to talk about things that are unfootball related. And let's talk about some non-football news. WWE champion Drew McIntyre, this news broke out on Monday that he tested positive for COVID-19, and I was honestly stunned that this happened, and I hope that he gets better. I just hope that, I don't know what happened. I don't know how he contracted it. He said he had no symptoms. But let me just play this brief clip that in this statement he had from this past Monday's Raw. So let's roll it.
How are you, WWE Universe? I wish I could have been there with you all tonight in the Thunderdome, but unfortunately, as I'm sure you've heard already, I tested positive for COVID-19. Now, I'm one of the fortunate ones with no symptoms, but I assure you, COVID should not be taken lightly. Don't think you can't catch it, because you can. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody, and the only way we're going to be able to stop this thing is by working together. So please, wear your mask, follow social distancing guidelines. It's not just to protect you, it's to protect everyone and their loved ones. I'll see you all really, really soon. But until then, stay safe.
But anyway, that was Drew's statement from Monday Night Raw, and he is going to be challenging. He's going to be defending his WWE title against Goldberg at the Royal Rumble. Just hope to God that he retains the title against Goldberg, because I just don't see Goldberg holding the title and then being a Brock Lesnar and hold it hostage till WrestleMania. But anyway, I just hope that Drew McIntyre keeps himself healthy and safe until the Royal Rumble, and then hopefully he'll be Claymoring kicking ass again heading into WrestleMania season as your reigning and defending WWE champion. And in some other non-football related news, at the time of this recording on Wednesday, James Harden, the now former Houston Rockets star point guard, was traded to the Brooklyn Nets. I kid you not. So he was traded to the Brooklyn Nets for a bunch of stuff. He was traded for pretty much nothing. In return, the Brooklyn Nets gave him. The Brooklyn Nets gave the Houston Rockets a bunch of unprotected first round picks, a pick swaps, whatever that means, a Milwaukee Bucks first round pick in 2022 from Cleveland, and a lot of teams were in the mix for this in this trade. So the Cleveland Cavaliers were also involved. They acquired Jared Allen and Taurean Prince. I don't know what team they were on. They were either on the Nets, the Pacers, because they were also involved in this trade, but we'll talk about that shortly, or the Rockets. I don't know what team they were on. And then the Indiana Pacers got Karis LeVert from the Nets and a 23 second round selection from Houston. And in the biggest thing, Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, Rodions Kurucs, are all going to the Rockets as well. So, and they're coming from Indiana. So that was a very big trade that happened on Wednesday. So Rockets clearly are the big winners in this trade. They finally dumped off Harden's big contract and Harden's frustration with the franchise. Now, again, I don't know how. Obviously, Houston's rebuilding now, and I don't know what they're gonna do to replace James Harden, in going down the line. But as for the Brooklyn Nets, because obviously the media is hyping them up to be championship contenders, but hold your horses. James Harden hasn't even flown down to Brooklyn yet. We just got to see how this goes. I don't know if it will really work, because that's a lot of egos for, I think it's Steve Nash that's coaching the Nets now. That's a lot of egos and a lot of willpower that Steve Nash has to make sure that gels smoothly, because you got Kevin Durant, a good player, but he's a bit of a Twitter head. And then you got Kyrie Irving, who's also a drama queen. He was recently violating COVID protocols. There's pictures of him maskless. I don't know where, but somewhere around outside of Brooklyn. And then you got James Harden. He's obviously has his problems, but yeah, you have to make sure all three of these guys coexist with one another. Make sure they're on the same page, drama free, no egos, and that's gonna be a challenge for Steve Nash. And that could be the deciding factor whether or not the Brooklyn Nets will win a championship this season. So that's gonna be something to look out for all you NBA fans and for Nets fans. So we'll see what happens with this trade. But right now, I think the Rockets came out the big winners because of what they got long term. They got some picks, Oladipo on an expiring contract, and they're gonna probably use this season to determine whether they should resign him. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where they go with this, with both parties. Well, clearly, James Harden is finally out of Houston. He's probably celebrating to the moon. So, there you go. So now, we can talk about Super Wildcard Saturday. And, man, I honestly didn't expect the games to be that good. Well, more than half of the games to be good. 4 out of 6 the games were pretty good. The last game of the day was a complete shocker, and then the game before that was a complete dud. The worst of the bunch. But you can't win them all, right? You can't win them all. We can't always have a perfect 6 of 6 good slate of games. I mean, I honestly was hoping, but nonetheless, we started our Saturday with the 7th seed in the AFC, Indianapolis Colts taking on the AFC East champions Buffalo Bills. On the last episode, I predicted the Bills to win by 7, and the reasoning for this was I believe the Bills had the best, was one of the best teams in the NFL, with great play on both sides of the ball, and especially on the offense with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Cole Beasley. And even then, you still couldn't count out the Colts, but that depended on which Phillip Rivers you were gonna get. Where you're gonna get the one that took care of the football and did enough to keep his team alive and enough to win, or were you gonna get the one that threw so many interceptions that it reminded you of 2016 Chargers? So the actual score was 27-24. And this game was actually a very tight one. It was a tight down the wire. I will say this, the most common theme of the day for me was the Bills' inability to stop Jonathan Taylor. So, I saw this, and they struggled to stop Jonathan Taylor. He was just finding open lanes. The Colts offensive line did a pretty good job opening up the running lane for Jonathan Taylor to get first downs, gain a lot of yardage, and I'm pretty sure he got a touchdown too. But he was just allowing himself to just gash the Bills' run defense, and the Bills had no answer for it all game. They just didn't. And while Jonathan Taylor was a good part of the game, unfortunately, Frank Reich, man, I think you got too aggressive in this game, unfortunately, because I think the call to go for it on 4th down at the end of the first half was, I don't know if that was such a good call, because they went for it on 4th down, on 4th and goal. They were in the red zone, I think it was inside the 10-yard line. And instead of going for 3 points, which could have cut it very close, I forgot what the score was, but they didn't want just the 3 points. I think they were down 13-7. I don't remember the score, but Phillip Rivers throws a pass high, and it falls incomplete. And that allows the Bills to run out the clock and go into half with the lead. So that was another point of emphasis on the Colts' over aggressiveness. Another problem was that over aggressiveness allowed the Bills to finally wake up on offense, because they started slow. They had a slow start in the first, at least for most of the first half, but they finally started to wake up when they finally saw that, oh, the Colts are not scoring. They're not taking advantage of their opportunities. So Josh Allen finally got himself a nice game. I think the first sign was when he had an improv pass, their opening possession, when Josh Allen threw what it looked like a designed run in the red zone, but he's there's nothing going for him. He thought he was gonna get sacked, but he saw Deshaun Knox wide open in the end zone, and he literally just lobbed it, and Knox caught it for a touchdown. And that was such good improvisation. That was really good. And then Obviously, Stephon Diggs finally got momentum. Eventually, Josh Allen finally found Stephon Diggs, and eventually Diggs found the end zone to extend Buffalo's lead in the fourth. But man, I don't know how the Bills' pass defense was able to not get pressure on Phillip Rivers. They didn't get any hits or like sack him or anything. There was like no pressure on from the Bills' defensive line. I don't know if they had a bad game or it was the Colts' offensive line like really protecting Rivers well. So maybe that was a good takeaway from the Colts. What wasn't good about this game overall, though, was the referees, because this game could have been over like very early. There couldn't have not been like so much anticipated drama. Like there couldn't have been like 3 straight incompletions from the Colts to end the game, because Zach Pascal on the Colts' last possession, he caught a pass from Phillip Rivers, and then he clearly fumbled the ball, but they reviewed it, and he was down by contact. They upheld that he was down by contact. He took more than 2 steps forward before, and then the Bills punched it out, and they ruled that down by contact. That makes no sense whatsoever. I don't understand that. I really don't. But it didn't matter anyway. The Bills managed to win the game, 27-24. But again, I would be concerned about their defense. They really need to get some pressure on their next opponent, the Ravens, who I'll get to later, because they're going to be playing Lamar Jackson. The Bills are going to be playing a much tougher quarterback and a more mobile quarterback in Lamar Jackson. So that pass rush needs to get to attack the offensive line. They need to pressure Jackson into throwing and shutting down his running ability. Otherwise, Lamar Jackson is going to have a field day on running the football, not just through the running backs, but through himself, through Jackson's legs. So the Bills got to hopefully learn from this game that they need to improve on their run defense. But hey, you're just hearing this from a guy rambling, a casual fan rambling about his thoughts from the game. But as for the Colts, because they ended up losing this game, now they head to their offseason. They improved on their previous 7-9 record from 2019. They ended up 11-5. I don't see too many, in my opinion. I don't know what else they need to address besides their biggest need, and that is quarterback, because I don't know if they will. Phillip Rivers is gonna stay in Indianapolis, or if he's even gonna play next season. But it's a big question mark. It is a big question mark. But even then, if he re-signs for another year in Indianapolis, they have to fight. Like the Colts have to see who they can mentor, who they can draft, or who they could sign in free agency. So they to be mentored under Phillip Rivers, because we've seen what Jacoby Brissett can do in 2019, and he just didn't get it done. He did not get it done. He had promise early in that 2019 season, but well, they lost 7 straight games and they ended up 7-9. So, in my opinion, quarterback is the Colts' biggest need in this coming off season, and we'll see what they do to address it. As for the Bills, they're moving on to face the Ravens, and we'll talk more about the Ravens in the coming minutes. As for the next playoff game on Saturday, we had the Rams, the 6-seeded Rams, LA Rams taking on the NFC West champion Seattle Seahawks. I predicted on last week's episode that the Seahawks were going to win by 7. My reasoning for this was that the Seahawks defense was playing a little bit better than last month, or than December, or in even previous months. But again, they were playing bad teams, and that had really bad offenses. The Jets, the Rams, even the Rams themselves, the Niners, the Giants. Well, they lost to the Giants technically, but still, their Giants are still a bad offense. I also mentioned that we didn't know about the status of Jamal Adams, who have wound up playing. We also didn't know about the status of Jared Goff, who still wound up playing despite the broken thumb. And even then, the Seahawks offense literally just flipped roles with the Seahawks defense, and where now they just playing average. So the actual score ended up being 30-20, not in favor of the Seahawks, but the Rams actually won this game. So that was something. That was something. Now, the Rams played a really good game here. I don't know if you would call it a repeat performance from Week 10, but they held the Seahawks to less than 300 yards of total offense. But that's besides the stat. Aaron Donald and that Rams D-line harassed Wilson all game long. Like, Russell Wilson literally got sacked so many times. He got intercepted near the end of the second half, and then he just kept throwing away the ball, making poor throws that he couldn't get anything going. He literally couldn't get anything going all game. He was getting frustrated by the offensive line's continued failure to protect him, to stop the pass defense. I mean, it's Aaron Donald. Obviously, it's Aaron Donald that you can't stop. But the rest of the defensive line, Russell Wilson's probably feeling like, guys, protect me, man. Protect me so I can make something happen. Anyway, John Wolford, the backup, started this game despite the fact that Jared Goff was deemed active, and I know some people were saying like, oh, even though Goff is there, why is he not the starter? Now, yeah, that's true, but to my point that he's coming off surgery that happened on, I think it was two weeks ago at the time of this recording, like the Monday after the Week 16 game, and Sean McVay probably didn't know he was how much he's recovered. I mean, not to defend Jared Goff or the Rams in any case, but this is just in general. It's like you don't know, like what kind of situation you're going to throw a quarterback that's coming off a surgery, you know. And it's just not like, I know it's just a minor surgery, but it's just like you don't want to throw him to the wolves right away. But anyway, on the team's second possession, John Wolford took a bad hit from Jamal Adams and was later taken to the hospital as a precautionary measure. Fortunately, he was back after the game, and it was just deemed a stinger, and it remains to be seen what his status will be for Saturday's game. So Jared Goff had to come in, and he did not look good at all. I think he was still clearly hampered by the thumb surgery, so he's still trying to like get himself going with the game. But outside of that, meanwhile, on the Seahawks side, their offense again was awful. Outside of a good touchdown, the DK Metcalf, and a garbage time touchdown at the end of the game. And as I alluded to earlier, the offensive line continues to be a problem, which again leads to Russell Wilson making really poor throws, including that pick six to Darius Williams, or getting sacked countless times by Aaron Donald. The pick six by Williams in the second quarter, and the fumble on a punt by DJ Reed late in the fourth, which led to a touchdown by the Rams on their next possession. Well, that buried the Seahawks. Those bad decisions, along with the Brian Schottenheimer, the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks, they got buried. They got buried. They looked completely unprepared to play this game. It's like, don't excuse the lack of a crowd for this game, because a lot of teams had to prepare for that in these playoffs, but they just did not look ready to play. And it looks like the Seahawks are looking for a new offensive coordinator. They parted ways with Schottenheimer. Good job for the Rams for upsetting the Seahawks, and now their prize is facing the Packers in a very cold Lambeau Field. And even though my show is called Very Cold Lasagna, I know that Rams will probably not want to eat my lasagna right now, because that defense led by Aaron Donald, better hope that's enough to keep them in the game, because they're not going to win the game if Jared Goff can't at least keep up with Aaron Rodgers. That's all I can say about that. Now, as for the Seahawks, what do they need for this offseason? As I allude to off camera, for the last 3-4 years, they need an offensive lineman, or 2, or 3, maybe like retool the entire offensive line for that matter. But I don't know how they're going to do that, because all their money is invested to Russell Wilson. So, oof. You gotta pick something. Not only that, you have to re-sign Jamal Adams. So you got some things to address, because Saturday's performance was a sign that you gotta change up something. You gotta shake things up in Seattle, because you haven't gotten past the semifinals since you got picked in the end zone by Malcolm Butler. So something's got to change in Seattle. Something's got to be shaken up. So in the nightcap for Saturday's wild card, we had the 5-seeded Tampa Bay Bucks going up against the NFC least champion Washington football team. Now, I predicted, and I can kind of eat crow with this, I predicted the Bucks to win in a complete blowout, but I mean, not complete. I was a little generous. I said Bucks by 17. So I was a little generous that it wasn't going to be a complete blowout. So I said that a very good Washington defensive front wasn't going to be enough to compete against Tom Brady, because, well, not even Alex Smith, not even Antonio Gibson, and Terry McLaurin were going to be enough to compete or to keep up with Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, and the whole lineage of weapons that are on the Bucs offense. So that's what I predicted. But when you hear the actual score, it was 31-23. And I was at work. When when this game was happening, so I had to watch. I watched this on DVR when I got home, and I was like, "How Like, what's happening here? What was happening here? So the Bucks were up 18-7 at halftime, and then like you'd think that this was gonna be the Bucks were gonna continue to do what they were going to do, because it was clear early on the Tampa Bay offense did exactly what it needed to do. Tom Brady continued establishing his chemistry with his receivers in Evans, Antonio Brown. Chris Godwin had an awful game though with so many drops though. Cameron Brate had a really good night. He just gets lost. I don't know. He just gets lost in the shuffle by Gronk though. But all of a sudden in the second half, Taylor Heineke, who started for Alex Smith because Smith had a calf injury that just wasn't responding right. Taylor Heineke, the former XFL quarterback for the St. Louis Battlehawks, he actually kept the Washington football team in it. And I was like, damn, dude. Damn. He rushed for a touchdown. He threw for a touchdown. He kept advancing the ball downfield. It was like why couldn't Washington sign this guy for all season long? Yeah, I know he was taking online math classes at, I forgot what school it was, but what run. Well, you could have just released Dwayne Haskins earlier. You could have just signed Heineke and have him sit Alex Smith for a couple of games, and if Alex Smith doesn't respond to his injuries, then have Taylor Heineke go. Like, this kid can ball. I know it's just one game, but he's good. He was good tonight on that night. So I know eventually that the Bucks eventually put the game away, but the fact that Washington even put up a fight, an inspiring fight, tells you that the future is bright for them. Like, granted that they make the necessary changes in the offseason. Now, what do they need to do in the offseason? Well, the first thing that they should do is that they should re-sign Taylor Heineke to a short-term deal, because again, the Washington football team should not be like, oh man, Dan Snyder should be like, oh shit, this kid's having a breakout game. Let's sign him to a super max deal. No, you shouldn't do that. What Ron Vera, Dan Snyder should do is sign Heineke to a short-term deal. And I think they can keep Kyle Allen. He's not the greatest, but he's not terrible either. I mean, we seen what we could do in Carolina. I mean, the Niners whooped his ass anyway. But Kyle Allen, again, he's just below average. I mean, and Ron Vera likes him anyway. And then draft a quarterback in the draft. I mean, that's just my opinion. And then have a triple threat match to see who gets the starting position, and go from there. You know, you never know with Heineke or whoever they get in the draft. I know, I think Washington is slated to pick 19th. I know they're not gonna get the hottest prospect, like a Trevor Lawrence or a Zach Wilson or a Justin Fields or whatnot, but they should at least draft a quarterback to ramp up some competition, ramp up some interest to follow up this honestly surprising performance that they put up against Tampa Bay. Now, other than a quarterback, they should get some help for Terry McLaurin, get some help on the offensive line. You should upgrade the secondary because they were just getting gashed by Tampa Bay in that game. So, there's a lot to build on in this game. If they do that, If they get a quarterback, especially if they get a quarterback, they could be a really good team in the NFC East. Because you don't know if Dak Prescott is going to resign with the Cowboys. I mean, it's likely, but you never know. Things can change on the spot. The New York Giants, Daniel Jones is not the future. I'm sorry. And the Eagles are such a hot mess, especially after they just fired Doug Peterson, and Carson Wentz is probably going to either want in or want out, whoever the new head coach is going to be. And you got a quarterback controversy between him and Jalen Hurts. So, it's a hot mess in Philly. So that leaves Washington. And another need is that hopefully they get a permanent nickname that isn't the Washington football team. I don't know what that is. Hopefully it's not, socially like controversial. But hopefully they get a nickname, a new team name during this offseason that's good. That's good to the public. So those were the Saturday games. A really good start to the playoffs for all three games, and I was actually looking forward to the Sunday slate. Looking forward to Sunday, and we kicked it off with the 5-seeded Baltimore Ravens take on the AFC South Tennessee Titans. I picked the Ravens by 3 because while I thought the Tennessee Titans defense was going to suck ass, I didn't firmly believe in the Ravens to not really put away the game like big, because, well, the teams they played against at the end of the regular season, the Jaguars, the Giants, the Cowboys, the Bengals, just to get into postseason, they got red hot on those teams. They built on that momentum on those teams. So I was ready to give credit on their hot streak based on the victories on those teams. And again, Lamar then playoff record, and not just playoff record, but track record in the biggest spotlights. Patrick Mahomes 0-3. He lost to the Titans, who were then the 6th seed in last year's playoffs. And not only that, he got clapped by those Titans in last year's playoffs. So that was my consensus last week. But the actual score was 20-13 in favor of the Ravens. And why was that? Well, the Ravens followed my key to the game. Shut down Derrick Henry, the rushing leader, Derrick Henry. And they did so by limiting him to under 50 yards rushing. He exactly had 40 yards rushing, but they followed my key to the game, and that was completely shut him down. And that's another thing, takeaway from this game. Mike Vrabel did not stray away from not using Derrick Henry when it wasn't working. He didn't allow Ryan Tannehill to throw the ball to AJ Brown or Corey Davis or I don't know who else is on that team, but he didn't allow Ryan Tannehill to throw more or like run more. But I feel like they got too safe. They felt too reliant on Derrick Henry, even though it was not working, and especially became apparent when that it wasn't working when the Titans were down 20-13 in the fourth quarter, and the Titans were in field goal range, but they instead punted, and they still, even on their next possessions, they still kept trying to get something going with Derrick Henry, and it didn't work. So Lamar Jackson finally got a playoff win. The Ravens defense, after intercepting Tannehill. They celebrated by stomping on the Titans logo as revenge for the Titans for doing the same thing in Week 11. So they didn't even shake hands either after the game. So Lamar, in any case, Lamar Jackson finally erases the narrative that he can't win a playoff game. So now it's on him and the Ravens team to build on that momentum because they face an even tougher offense and a somewhat less conservative team in the Buffalo Bills. So I already touched on the Bills and how they need to contain. They need to step it up on the run defense, step it up on the pass defense, the pass rush if they want to on against Lamar Jackson. Again, that's the reverse way. If the Ravens want to win this game, pressure the Bills' rush and pass defense with Lamar Jackson running the ball as well as through the air, and use J.K. Dobbins. I mean, the Bills' defense it's good, but it can be exploited like it was against the Colts. Now, as for the Titans, as for their offseason needs, I think they need some help outside of A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, because those were the only names that I was able to keep my eye on in this wild card game. And yeah, they need to upgrade that defense. They need to invest some money on the secondary because Malcolm Butler is not the Super Bowl hero that we all thought he was, that you signed him for. And you got Jadeveon Clowney is not showing up when the lights are shining brightest for Tennessee. So they got to upgrade that secondary, and they got to upgrade that pass rush in the offseason. And then, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for your MVP, Mitch Trubisky. Give it up for your MVP, the one that you all voted for, all you kids out there. Mick Trubisky. That is right. The middle day slate of this, the midday game, was the Chicago Bears going to New Orleans to take on the Saints. And this game was on Nick. I checked out the Nick broadcast along with switching to CBS. Yes, I channel switched from CBS and Nick because, well, I wanted to see how this Nick broadcast did, and I'll get my thoughts on that too. But this has got to be a joke, right? This had to be a joke. I don't know. I still don't know what to think of this. Y'all voted Mitch Trubisky as the MVP. I guess now you can call it the not valuable player. I don't know. Again, this maybe is a joke because kids like Bears, and I guess they do like Mitch Trubisky. They like, oh hey, Mitch Trubisky must be a really big role model. Yeah, a role model in how to not play football. But yeah, Mitch Trubisky is your MVP. So that's that. So again, this game was broadcast on CBS and Nickelodeon. I predicted the Saints to win by 10. And my reasoning was the Saints were not as healthy as a Green Bay or Tampa or Seattle, and they weren't playing their best football as either of those teams, but they still had enough on both sides of the ball to practically shut down a non-existent Bears team. And it was especially apparent of that that the Bears were non-existent because, well, your MVP, Mitch Trubisky, doesn't show up when it matters most. And he would no-show again. And, well, Nick Foles wouldn't save their ass. And, well, my prediction was mostly right. This is actually the game that my predictions were pretty much true. Because the score was a blowout, and I feel bad for kids on Nick that had to watch Mick Trubisky show up on your TV screens. 21-9 was your final score for this game. And my surprise was how was this game not a bigger blowout? Let me speak on that first. This game could have been a bigger blowout, but I guess I don't know if I can give the Bears defense some credit for keeping Drew Brees in check, or for a half, or for limiting the Saints defense for just 21 points. I don't know. I don't know why the Saints could have just scored more, but I don't know. I guess Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Latavius Murray, they did just enough to make this game a blowout, along with Taysom Hill, and I forgot I keep forgetting the Titans' name. I don't know, but they did just enough to keep a no-show Bears team from scoring, and Cam Jordan on defense, and CJ Gardner-Johnson from keeping this game competitive. But the Saints better hope that Drew Brees plays better, plays a little more aggressively, he slings it more in next round, because they're gonna be facing Tom Brady and that suddenly red hot Bucs team, because that they're gonna be slinging it out, and Drew Brees better outsling Tom Brady. And as for the Bears, I know that the Mashatskis are keeping Matt Nagy, they're keeping Ryan Pace, they're keeping Ted Phillips, but they better not even think about keeping their NVP Mick Trubisky after Sunday's awful performance. He had one good. I'll give him credit. He had one good throw on a trick play to Javon Wims, but Javon Wims ate too much Butterfinger, and he dropped the pass to no one's surprise. And the Bears didn't convert it on fourth down in the first quarter, because Trubisky didn't even try to lower his shoulder and dive for the first down marker. And, that led to the Saints slowly but surely blowing out the Bears. And other than that, all I could say is, man, CJ Gardner-Johnson, I don't know what he does to get Bears players ejected, man. He just has a natural talent. He just has a natural talent to piss off the Bears. On Sunday he got Anthony Miller ejected by convincing Miller to punch him in the face. Just like it did with Javon Wims. Bears players are so stupid, man. And then they showed this graphic on the Nick broadcast where they compared Javon Wims punching Gardner-Johnson to the SpongeBob episode, No Weenies Allowed, to Patrick punching SpongeBob, where it was like, nobody calls me Tubby. Speaking of the Nick broadcast, before I get into that, all I can say about the Bears, if there was a bigger spotlight in which you needed to see that the Bears completely sucked ass on Sunday, even on Nick, this was the biggest one. even with the injuries on receiver, on defense, the Bears had terrible quarterback play and terrible play calling. And, well, as of today, they're even unwilling to address it. They're, as the Schleg Daddy, go check out the channel. That channel. He's such a piece of work. He's just a great act. They're gonna be such a mediocre piece of shit. That McCaskey's, Brian Pace, Matt Nagy, they're all willing to accept mediocrity. That's making them big pieces of shit. But one positive thing that came out of that Bears Saints game was the Nickelodeon broadcast. Now, when I first saw the commercial for when the NFL was gonna be airing on Nick, I was literally laughing my ass off. I literally was, because I thought this was gonna be some stupid shit. But when they actually did it, I still thought it was dumb. I still was laughing my ass off. But I was laughing my ass off because they're actually pulling this off. Like, they're actually doing something positive with this. Like, this was actually well done. It's like you have these really cool graphics. Like, I mean, yeah, the first down marker was moving at the beginning, but they managed to stabilize it. But they got this really cool scoreboard graphic. It was really colorful. And then the biggest thing that really popped to me was the CGI slime cannons in the end zone every time he scored a touchdown. The one thing that I didn't like was the premature touchdown slime cannon for when the Saints recovered a fumble for a touchdown. it was kind of like weird. It was kind of awkward, but nonetheless, the CGI slime cannon touchdowns, it was really good. It was really good. And again, the graphics that they did on Sunday, like comparing players to Nickelodeon characters, and like, again, with the Jalen Wimps incident and the no weenies allowed thing, like those kind of things, those were really good. Those were really like good. It was like, I feel like those were much better, like, than the usual ones you get on CBS or Fox or NBC, like the usual Photoshop ones you get on those networks. It was like a refreshing change of pace. Like I felt like football felt fun for once, in a long time. And not only that, I felt like I learned something. I felt like I learned something that, well, I most probably didn't learn yet in football, and I'm still learning. Even if it was as in depth as a Jim Nantz or Tony Romo or the Lord of God, a Joe Buck or Troy Aikman, Noah Eagle, who is actually the great Iron Eagle's son, and Nate Burleson, they did a lot to not just entertain, but also educate kids and me on the sport of football. Again, they had to like simplify it and explain it in a way that kids would not only understand but make it fun. Nate Burleson used a lot of analogies to like he explained how Mitch Trubisky's benching back in week 3 was like getting grounded by your parents. So that was like, analogies like that was pretty good. And for fans of this particular show, young Sheldon appeared on penalties to, of course, explain them. Like, a false start is yada yada yada. So he popped up. So fans of Young Sheldon were probably marking out there. So that was pretty cool. That was overall. These Nick NFL games, like, they're a great way to encourage kids to like, to get into watching this sport, because they probably, like, not a lot of kids are like growing up are gonna be watching this, and I think this is a great way to like not only get kids to watch it, but introduce alternative ways to show NFL games. And this was a really good one. This was a really good one. But of course they gotta if they want to do this again, and I hope they do this again, they gotta fix upon their mistakes, like explaining in the proper analogy, because there was one instance where Taysom Hill got a concussion, and I think it was Noah Eagle or Nate Burleson who compared it to explained it as a knee injury, but again, it was actually a concussion, and they had to explain the blue tent. So I feel like they need to properly address that. Again, you can say like concussion, like, but you have to say it in a way that that's addressed to the Nick audience. But you can't just outright like claim a concussion as just a different injury. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. And of course, there's that incident where I don't know if now they're saying it wasn't Cordell Patterson that's it, but there was an audible F-bomb at the end of the first half, and the commentators were just like, all right. And yeah, that's probably gonna have to be adjusted. Now again, I don't think that's gonna be enough to that's probably not gonna be enough to make Nick say, oh, we're not gonna do another Nick broadcast. No, learn from that. As best as possible. Take from the episode Sailor Mouth from SpongeBob. If a hot mic audible swear comes out, do your best to censor it, like with a dolphin noise, like as best as you possibly can. Censor it with a dolphin noise, like, oh, what the, yeah. So that's my take on that. And my final is actually encourage kids to vote for for a player worthy of the NVP that's actually on the winning team next time. Because, well, if you don't vote for the right MVP, you don't get paid. Oh man, I gotta say, Lex Lumpkin was pretty good, but he was pretty good. And I don't know, was it Gabrielle Nevea Green was good too, was okay too. But yeah, I think she was in that Renee Young kind of role where she was just saying ooh ah, but at the same time she was also there to be like the kids in the audience to learn the sport of football. So I guess I can give her a pass this time around. But yeah, now I can sit around here and talk about how great and good how the Nick broadcast was, but we got to move on and talk about the Bears offseason needs. Because they don't want to fire the front office and the head coach, and they're content with mediocrity. Well, if they don't want to get their heads out of their asses, they have to find a quarterback. They should not resign their MVP. Mitch Trubisky should take his MVP, shove it straight up his ass, and go somewhere else in free agency. Don't re-sign him to a short-term deal. Don't even franchise tag his ass. Just don't. You've seen 4 years of his stupidity, and he's a good guy personally, but on the field he sucks ass. He sucks ass. You could also use some wide receivers, Bears fans, and a competent offensive line, and maybe a secondary. And speaking of wide receivers, please get some that actually don't get into fights with safeties, opposing safeties, and that leads to their ejections. So, Bears are going into an offseason full of questions with limited cap space, mediocre front office. Saints are going on to the divisionals, facing Tom Brady. That should be an interesting matchup. The three-peat, but we're gonna get into that right after I discuss the final matchup of the Sunday night, the Sunday slate. The 6th-seeded Cleveland Browns take on the AFC North champion Pittsburgh Steelers in an immediate rematch of Week 17. And before I get to my thoughts on this game, I predicted the Steelers by 3. Now, while I thought the Steelers' only good performance came in Week 16 in a comeback win over the Colts, I still thought that if the Steelers were going to win, Mike Tomlin was going to need a Big Ben to at least turn back the clock a little bit, to have another good game, along with Jace Conner and Jalen Samuels to get the running game going, and their defense to make some plays against Baker Mayfield. And if the Browns want to have a chance at an upset, they needed to attack with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And if that didn't work, Baker Mayfield needed to throw it to Jarvis Landry, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Austin Hooper, and also take care of the football. They did more than that. The Browns did more than that, and Steelers did none of it. Because from the very beginning of the game, from the very start of this game, the Steelers fumbled it all away. Literally. From the very first snap, Marcus Pouncey snapped the ball too high, and the Browns recovered it in the end zone for a touchdown. That's literally how the game started. And then on the next possession, Big Ben Roethlisberger got picked by MJ Stewart, and Jarvis Landry got a touchdown for Baker Mayfield on the Browns' first offensive possession, and the score was 14-0. And then the Steelers punted, which followed with a Kareem Hunt touchdown, eventually to make it 21-0. And then Big Ben threw yet another interception to Sheldrick Redwine, and it eventually led to another Kareem Hunt touchdown. And by that point, it was 28-0 in the first quarter alone. The first freaking quarter. Now, sure, the Steelers got a touchdown from James Conner later in the second, and you thought that, the Steelers might have a chance to get some momentum, try to make a comeback. But nope. Austin Hooper and the Browns answer right back, march it back down to the end zone, make it 35-7. And Chris Boswell makes a field goal to make it 35-10 at the half. And while anything was possible, the Steelers played like dog shit. The Steelers played like dog shit all first half. 3 turnovers, 28 unanswered in the first quarter. That was terrible. That was a terrible first quarter and a terrible first half by the Steelers, and a great first half by the Browns. Now, the Browns' offense did play a little conservative in the third, which allowed the Steelers to score 13 unanswered to make the score 35-23. But Big Ben threw yet 2 more interceptions, and near the end of the third quarter, Mike Tomlin tried to draw the Browns offside. I don't know why he tried to do that, but he probably forgot. Maybe he thought that the Browns were not disciplined enough. He still thought that these Browns were in the skid mark era. But yeah, they weren't gonna bite. The Steelers had to punt, And eventually, the Browns won 48-37. And I gotta admit, I was not expecting this at all. I mean, yeah, like the Browns ran away with this game, like, and the Steelers tried to cut it close, but the Browns ran away with this game. But I was not like, out of all the games, this result, the way this happened, I was not expecting the way for this game to turn out at all. But I give a lot of credit to this Browns team. They played absolutely great football. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, they just absolutely like attacked the Steelers all night. Even if they slowed down a little bit in the second half, but they did exactly what they needed to do. And that was to attack. They attacked early and they attacked often. And Baker Mayfield, forget his stat line. He took care of the ball. He got Jarvis Landry. He got Austin Hooper going, and he did his job. And he did it more than well. And the defense did pretty dang good too. They forced really, really bad throws from Ben Roethlisberger. So the Browns were clearly the more motivated team to win this game. They wanted to go on to the next round more than the Steelers did. They wanted to win it for Kevin Stefanski. They wanted to win it for the rest of the coaching staff. They wanted to win it for all the players that were still on the COVID list. They only had 1 week of practice, but in the end, the Steelers looked like the team that only had 1 day of practice. Sorry, the Browns only had 1 day of practice, but the Steelers looked like the team that had that 1 day of practice. They looked clearly unprepared, and I'm starting to think, man, why did Mike Tomlin give Big Ben that week off? I don't know. I really don't know. But anyway, I don't know if this Browns team will be able to like keep up with Mahomes, or like at least in check, or like keep up with him in a shootout. But if they're able to keep pace, at least, even in defeat, even if they lose, even if they cut it close, this performance and whatever happens next week, they're going to show that they're not the skid marks anymore. That designation goes to the Jets and the Jaguars. They're the skid marks. The Browns are no longer that. At least for next season and probably next year too. Kevin Stefanski is finally the change the Browns needed culturally and emotionally too. Now, while the Browns are moving on, the Steelers, they got a lot of questions to answer. The biggest one is at quarterback, because they have to decide if they want to keep Big Ben, because if they keep Big Ben Roethlisberger, it's a $41 million cap hit, and the Steelers, just like the Eagles, are way over the cap, and they have no money to spend, and that's going to be very hard to sign. I think Juju Smith-Schuster is a free agent, so it's going to be very hard to keep him. But if Ben retires or the Steelers want to release him, then that the team takes a $20 million cap hit. So either way, they lose money. But either way, whether they keep him or release him, they need a quarterback. They need another quarterback. I think I don't know. They pick in around the early to mid 20s. So they have, regardless, they still have to pick a quarterback. Whoever's left, the leftovers of the quarterback class. I don't know who it is, but they need a quarterback that Mike Tomlin can hopefully develop. Because Mason Rudolph ain't the answer. Josh Dobbs ain't the answer either. So, quarterback is the number one priority for the Steelers this offseason. And also, if as much as possible, re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster. So that is the wildcard slate from Saturday and Sunday. That was a lot to take away from, that was a lot to get into. Now that is all in the books, we now move ahead to divisional weekend. 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. Oh man, this is where win or go home really means something. This is where I'd say like this and the conference finals, I know conference championships. Sorry, I always get that name mixed up with the NBA. This and the championship round is always the most important one. This is where championship dreams, championship aspirations come to continue or come to die. And I think this year it becomes more, I think that theme of championship aspirations either like at continuing or dying, because there are a lot of teams that have a lot of playoff aspirations that can possibly make a run for the Super Bowl. But only one can move on. Only one can move on. And the first teams to take a crack at moving on are the 6th-seeded LA Rams taking on the Green Bay Packers, fresh off a first-round bye on Fox in probably the snowy and but yet very cold Lambeau Field. And well, it's going to be an interesting one, because especially for the Rams. All my big storylines here are on the Rams. I don't really have much to say about the Packers because they don't really have too many weaknesses other than if they don't get if they're up big, can they stay up big? Because there were a lot of tendencies in the regular season where they were up, let's say by 2 or 3 scores, and they let an opponent score like let's say 14 or 20 unanswered points. They sometimes let opponents hang around too long, and the Packers have to we have to like hold them off. We have to actually hold them off. So can the Packers actually hold a big lead against the Rams? Now, as for the Rams, can this defense limit the Packers offense? Can Aaron Donald, who had that chest injury in the Seahawks game, pressure Aaron Rodgers? Can Jalen Ramsey, their top corner, limit Devontae Adams like he did to Seahawks receiver DK Metcalf? It's going to be a challenge for this Rams defense. It is, especially in the harsh, cold conditions in Green Bay. So it's going to be a real challenge, and especially on the offensive side of the ball, because Jared Goff did not play great. He played really bad. Granted, he was just coming off thumb surgery. So he's still a big question mark. John Wolford's also a big question mark. Blake Bortles was inactive, so you don't know which quarterback's going to play, which quarterback's going to start. So whichever quarterback, I do think it's going to be Goff. Can they do just enough to lead the Rams to an upset? We'll see. We'll see where it goes. I was just surprised that they managed to beat the Seahawks and beat them convincingly. So we'll see. But crazy things to happen. But I do think the Packers will end the Rams season here. They just have too many weapons on offense with Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams. There was another running back there, but I forgot. And they have enough on defense too to attack Jared Goff and shut down Cam Akers. So And the weather conditions, too, will be a big factor as well. So the Rams season ends here, and the Packers are going to go on to host the NFC Championship. Aaron Rodgers' first NFC Championship at home in Green Bay. Now, in the Saturday night capper, and this is going to be a big one, the Baltimore Ravens take on the Buffalo Bills on NBC. And I touched on this a lot already, but I'm going to probably repeat it. Can the Ravens defense have a repeat performance from the Titans game by shutting down Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley? Now, the thing here that will weaken the Bills a little bit, who knows, maybe significantly, is in the run game, because they lost their running back in Zach, I forgot his name. It starts with a Zach. But yeah, they lost one of their top running backs. The Bills lost one of their top running backs, so Josh Allen's probably gonna have to throw it more. And speaking of Josh Allen, can the Ravens pressure him and sack him? So that remains to be seen. And as for the Bills, can that run defense be able to limit Lamar Jackson and J.K. Dobbins? Because, well, they had a hard time limiting Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines last week. So they're going to be faced with an even tougher challenge against Lamar Jackson and Dobbins. And I'm going to go on a limb here. I'm going to go on a upset tangent. I think Ravens are going to win here. Not by a lot, just by 3. They're going to win by a field goal. I think Josh Allen and the offense are going to keep the Bills in this game, but it's going to be up to the defense they're going to be the deciding factor and their ability to stop Lamar Jackson, stop the running game, and pretty much everything revolves around stopping Lamar Jackson, pretty much. Because if they don't stop Lamar Jackson, well, essentially, and slowly but surely, you're fucked. So, otherwise, I do think the Ravens will win a very close game. It's going to go down to the wire, and they're going to move on to the winner of the next game. The next game is the Cleveland Browns taking on the number 1 seed in the AFC, Kansas City Chiefs, who are also coming off a bye, but they rested Patrick Mahomes in Week 17. Now, the big thing here for the Chiefs is their performances from the Broncos, the Dolphins, Saints, and Falcons games. Mahomes didn't play particularly great, but they played good enough to come out of those games as winners. So while Mahomes didn't have those great games, were those just, I don't know what the right term for this is. Were they just smoke screens? Were they just illusions, or I don't know what the right word is. Are they just blind visions of what's to come in the playoffs? It's is it just tricks? Do they just want to mislead the Browns into thinking, oh, Patrick Mahomes is not playing at an MVP level? Maybe we can take advantage of that and try for an upset. But in reality, Mahomes is really prepping for the deeper postseason run, but we'll see. Was just that more motivation to get Mahomes ready for this postseason stretch to defend the AFC crown, and not just the AFC crown, the Super Bowl title from last year. Now, speaking of the Browns, can they build on this momentum that they suddenly got from that wild card game? Now they're going to get Kevin Stefanski back, and probably more from the COVID list. And now with this big upset win over the Steelers, they're going to be even more motivated to try to get another upset over the Kansas City Chiefs. But if they want to do that, they gotta probably do more than what they did against the Steelers, because Patrick Mahomes is not a Ben Roethlisberger. You also have to shut down Travis Kelce. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I don't know if he's playing. You also have to take into account Tyreek Hill. There's a lot of people that the Browns will have to watch out for. So it's gonna be a fight. Especially with the way the Browns have been playing right now. And even though the Browns are going to be playing a good fight, the Chiefs are still going to win by a touchdown. So even like the Browns are going to keep it close. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to do what Mahomes does and pull away. He's going to pull away from this game and lead the Chiefs to the third straight AFC title game against the Baltimore Ravens. So yeah, that's pretty much in essence my predicted AFC title game, the Baltimore Ravens versus the AFC Chiefs. But we'll get into my what I think of my championship games after I discuss the last divisional round game, and that is the rematch of the regular season. From the regular season, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the New Orleans Saints. And they've said it time and time again. It's very hard to defeat a team 3 times. It's hard to defeat the same quarterback 3 times. And that's obviously going to be the big storyline for me too. Can the Saints pull off the three-peat over the Bucs? And in the game that matters the most. The winner goes to the NFC Championship game. The Saints will either go to one of these teams will go to Lambeau, or if the Rams somehow upset the Packers, one of these teams will host the NFC Championship game now. But in all seriousness, also, will Tom Brady finally win against Drew Brees this season? Because if you remember, Tom Brady got blown out by Drew Brees the 2 times that the Bucs played the Saints in the regular season. Now they're playing the 3rd time, and Tom Brady and the Bucs are playing their best football all like in a month. So that should be something to watch out for. And Drew Brees, he's not coming off the best performance. He did enough. He made the throws that need to be made, but I don't know. I feel a little concerned with his performance, his decline a bit. But I don't know, Saints fans, should I really be concerned, or should you feel concerned about him going into this game? Because he has to slug it out against Tom Brady, who clearly looks like he still has it, even at 43. So we'll see. So again, I'm going to go on the upset limb and pick the Bucs by 7. Tampa just has a lot of pieces at their disposal on both sides of the ball, and they're just I'd say the more hot, like red hot chili pepper team right now. They have it more in sync on offense. They're picking it up on defense, even if they're missing a couple of guys. But if they want to win against the Saints, they need to execute on both sides of the ball, especially on defense. They allowed themselves to keep it tight against the Washington football team. They can't allow that to happen against the Saints, especially in this game that matters most. And if the Saints want to beat Brady for the 3rd time, they need Cameron Jordan and that defensive line to attack Brady, pressure him, and sack him frequently and often. So that is my predictions. I'm picking Packers for essentially these are the championship games I'm predicting from the divisional round. My predictions for the NFC and AFC title games are Bucks, Packs, Buckers. My God. Anyway, on the NFC side, Bucks, Packers, Ravens, Chiefs. Or we can end up with the more expected Saints, Packers, Bills, Chiefs. Or we can end up with something even crazier. We can go even all out crazy. We either get Rams, Bucks, or Rams, Saints. Or in the AFC, we just get even crazier. Browns, Bills, or Browns, Ravens. So much, like, I know, like, people are already, like, thinking it's going to be, like, this or that championship game. Oh, this team is going to win. But if you saw Wild Card Weekend, aside from the Saints game or the Bills game, it literally anything could happen. Like, any team could win in this postseason. Like, look at what the Rams did. Look at what the Ravens did. Look at what the Browns just did. They annihilated the Steelers. So literally anything can happen in this postseason. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch. It's going to be an interesting slate of games to watch this weekend. And I hope you all enjoy it. If you're a fan of these teams, I wish the best of luck to your teams. And, well, let's play ball. And hopefully we get more Nickelodeon NFL games, mainly playoff games for now in the future. But anyway, I'm DylanLasagna, your host, signing off the Very Cold Lasagna podcast. Keep that cold lasagna in the fridge, as always. And next episode, we will recap the divisional round and preview the conference championships. And until then, again, keep that lasagna very cold. Your opinions on sports and wrestling very cold. And I'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. Make sure to subscribe, listen, follow to this podcast on all platforms. And yeah, see you in the next one.